This is how a grandmaster thinks in chess.
Here.
And this is how a measly 1400 thinks, ha. If I go take, and he takes back, I can put a pawn in the center. Let's go. In this video, I will show you my thought process while reviewing one of my games and solving puzzles to help you get better. So, in Game 1, I started off with a traditional Italian game. There is an in-depth video on it on my channel. I quickly finished my opening and developing my pieces. By the end of theory, I made a mistake here, bishop b3. Now, even though the computer doesn't like this line because you lose back the pawn you took, I like to play it because generally my opponents don't know how to combat it. Just as I thought, my opponent doesn't know the theory, and instead makes a mistake allowing me to defend my knight and open my bishop. Here, I notice that my pawn on d5 is hanging and the only way I can defend it is by playing my knight back. Here, they attempt to pin my knight to my king, but I castle and move my king away from the center. Right after this, he tries to threaten checkmate in my king. The best way to defend this is to either defend the square directly with a piece, which I can't do, or block it with a pawn. I went for the latter and blocked with the pawn because I also wanted to kick the knight out. I didn't take the knight here because it opens the rook and queen and allows checkmate on my king. Obviously, I don't like losing, so I went for a potential queen trade. He allows the queen trade and the engine rates this as an even position for both sides and with perfect play, would result in a draw. After a few meaningless moves, that I pretty much had to make, I decided to force a trade of pieces. Basically, if black doesn't take my knight here and instead moves their bishop, I can kick it with my pawn and win the stranded knight. Him being a 1400 sees the sequence of moves and takes my knight. After I take back, things go very weird. Before I show you the next few moves, keep in mind that everyone makes mistakes and a 1400 is not a professional. Okay, here is the clip. That's right, 5 blunders in a row. And after 2 good moves from both of us, another 2 blunders. 7 blunders in 10 moves has to be some sort of world record. I started the endgame off by finally developing my pawn knight after 28 moves. Here, he attacks my rook, so I scan the board for the best possible place to move it. I put pressure on his undefended pawn, which is already being attacked by my recently developed knight. After he attacked my bishop and locked in his, I was forced back, otherwise I would lose my knight. He puts pressure on my knight, and if I move it, my bishop is lost. So, the only way I can protect my knight is by moving my bishop so that the rook can help. I decide to take this pawn, and in an attempt to trap my bishop, my opponent makes one fatal mistake. A mistake so big, I would be up an entire rook if I found out. Luckily, I did, and guess what, it even came with a beautiful knight sacrifice. This knight moves, checks the king, and puts double attack on the rook. So, if he didn't take my knight, I would take his rook and be up even more material. I take his rook, feeling so happy about myself. Now, there is still the rest of the game to play, so I can't get too cocky. The black king attempts an assassination on my poor, isolated bishop. Fortunately, I can check him with my rook, winning a tempo and simultaneously protecting my bishop. Here, I can't risk losing any pieces, so I protect this pawn with my rook. After he checks me, I need to decide a good, safe square for my king to go, and I choose g1. The genius behind this was I didn't want to get my king trapped in a corner and get mated. He attacks my pawn, so yet again I defend my pieces with pride, not letting him break through my impenetrable defenses. He challenges my rook, but my pieces aren't cowards. They don't back down from a fight. I slide my rook over, maintaining the defense of the pawn. I moved here, because the only other square on this file that was not covered by the pawn was d4. If I moved there, my king's weakness would have caused the loss of my dear rook, to a bishop check, forking the 2 pieces. He delivers the check anyways, freeing the bishop from its blocked-off prison. I sidestep with my king, to avoid any discovered checks from the deadly rook and bishop combo. He attacks my rook to a point where I either lose it or stop defending my pawn. Well, that pawn holds a very special place in my part and can also become very powerful in the future if it becomes a passed pawn. So, I decided to protect it, and bravely sacrificed my rooks. For some idiotic reason, he passes up on my sacrifice, so what do? I sacrifice my rook for a second time. The reason I did this was because I love having passed pawns, so taking here allows me to have an outside passed pawn, which I know from experience is very annoying. We trade off our pieces and I need to defend my pawn. I have two options here, defend the pawn directly or get rid of the attacker. I choose the latter and play bishop b8, moving the king out of the way and leaving both rooks hanging. After I take his rook, it is a simple endgame in which I come out victorious after 52 moves. Thank you all for watching. Have a good one.